discussed, in order to buy or sell one lot of euro dollar, you need 123,228 American dollars on your account, which is a lot of money. But even in order to trade with zero point 0.1 lots, you need 12,000 American dollars. And in order to conduct the smallest transaction possible, a micro lot, 0.01 lots, you still need $1,200 on your account, which is a lot of money. And what happens if we can't afford to have an account of that size, or we're just not ready yet? We're practicing and we don't want to invest that much money into the forex market. How do we trade then? Well, this is where leverage comes into play. The concept of leverage has a lot of negative sentiment around it, and people kind of think that it's bad for you or dangerous, which is completely not true. And in this and the next tutorial, we will disprove those fears. So what happens with leverage is your broker will actually lend you money in order to help you conduct transactions on the forex market. So in this picture, your money is on the right and the money the broker lends you is on the left. So let's have a look at a particular example. For instance, your balance is $500. And you want to conduct a transaction with the volume of 0.1 lots on the euro-dollar currency pair. So you require 12,322 American dollars to conduct this transaction. Obviously, your balance is insufficient at this stage. But with leverage, if your leverage is 1 to 100, then your broker will actually only require you to have 1% of that money, and the broker will lend you.
First, you got to get into a broker and pay the fee to get into that. But 1 to 100, I don't know if there's any brokers out there that'll do that to new people.
99% of the required amount. So in this case, your broker will lend you $12,199. So you're borrowing 99% of this required amount. All you have to invest is $123 of your own money. So that is 1% of the transaction, and that is much more affordable with your balance of $500. And in this case, you can now conduct this transaction and participate in the forex market, either buying or selling the euro dollar. So that's how leverage works. But why would the broker do this? Why would the broker lend you money? Well, to find that out, we have to talk about equity and margin, and we'll do that in the next tutorial.
All right, equity and margin. Why would he lend me 99% of it? I paid the margin, he paid this.
Previous tutorial, we explored an example where we were opening a hypothetical order of 0.1 lots. Now, to create this transaction, we required $12,322. And because that was quite a substantial amount, we explored the concept of leverage. And in fact, we found that with a leverage of 1 to 100, we could borrow 99% of the required amount from the broker, and we would only be required to put in 1% or $123. Now that amount that we need to put in, the $123, is called the margin for this transaction. And today we're going to talk more about the margin and find out exactly why the broker is willing to lend us 99% and how leverage works in the background and how all these concepts play out when you open an order and when the market goes against you and when the market goes in your favor. So let's jump straight into it. So here is our $500 balance, and now we want to open that transaction which we talked about. So the broker puts in $12,199, we put in $123. The $123 is our margin, and the remaining funds, so the 500 minus the 123, the $377, that is called the free margin. Now here we're going to introduce one more concept, and that is the concept of equity. Now normally equity is defined as the balance on your account plus or minus any unrealized profit or loss. So basically your balance is constant until you actually close your transaction, but your equity reflects whether the market is going in your favor or it's going against you. However, in this example, to start off with, we're going to kind of introduce equity backwards. We're going to introduce equity as the free margin on your account plus the margin. There's no big difference, and you'll see just in a few moments how that is exactly the same as what we discussed about balance and unrealized profit or loss. So there's our equity. We're going to outline it with a green bracket here on the right. And now let's see what happens as the market moves in either direction. So we'll start off by looking at what happens when the market moves against us. So if the market moves against our position, then first of all, let's say it moved against us, and the unrealized loss on our account is $100. So as you can see, the margin is intact, the broker funds are intact, but the free margin has reduced by $100. And therefore, our equity has also reduced by $100. At the same time, we should note that the balance hasn't changed. So that big box, the overall box is still $500, and still it looks like we have $500 on our account because that's our balance, but in reality there is an unrealized loss, and it's called an unrealized loss because you haven't yet closed the transaction. So that loss might change into a profit with time, or it might increase as a loss. So if the market keeps going against us, now the free margin has reduced by $200 and the equity has reduced by $200. And at the same time, the borrowed funds and the margin, the frozen margin, are still intact. Now, what happens if the market keeps going against us? Well, what will happen is a stop out. So a stop out is when the broker sees that you have lost quite a lot of funds and you don't have any free margin left, and in that case the broker will automatically close your position, and this loss will become a realized loss, and that way they will be able to pull out of this position. So because they lent you some money, now they see that the position has gone against you, they don't want to lose any of the money that they lent you, so they're just going to close your position and pull out their $12,199. And in this case, the margin acts as a safety net or a safety buffer. So basically the broker is saying, okay, this trader doesn't have any free margin left, we should close the position, and in that case what will happen is they pull back their $12,199 and you get back your margin. So your margin is returned to you. So why does the broker use this margin as a safety buffer? Well, because while they're closing the transaction, the market can actually move, and they might not have enough time to close the transaction spot on that margin level. So the market might even move a bit further against you and might eat into your margin, and you won't get $123, you might get $100 back, or $90 back, or even $50 back. So that is their safety buffer. So that is the funds that will get eaten into before the funds that they actually lent you. So that's how the broker uses the margin as a safety net. And as you can see, the equity has also reduced to the size of the margin. Now, the stop out can happen when all of your free margin is eaten up, so when you only have margin left, or maybe when you have half of your margin left. So the broker might, in its terms and conditions, specify that it will allow 50% of the margin to be used up before the stop out occurs, or it might allow 70% of the margin to be used up. So you have to refer to the terms and conditions of your broker to understand at which point a stop out will occur. And another thing you should be aware of is that
if things work not in your favor, you've got 123 left in there, 377 they've lost, they'll do a stop out. But here's the bad side. If the broker doesn't catch this and it starts eating into his loan money, you will be liable for the loss of that money in that loan. So you have to be very careful with leverage, and you need to know what you're doing before you get into it. Now, leverage will speed up your gains too if it goes in the right direction and you're going in the right direction. You'll increase your profits. And that's great if you know what you're doing and that equity is going in the right direction. But if it's not, you're liable for things that get into this loan. So you need to be very careful when you do leverage.